Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and get straight to insights that really matters. And today, we're diving into something truly profound, something woven right into the fabric of being human. Human dignity. It's more than just a nice phrase, isn't it? It's fundamental for us as individuals and for, the health of every society. Our deep dive today is, I think, pretty unique. We're unpacking an AI-driven scientific study, one that really tries to deconstruct human dignity. We'll look at where it came from, its biological roots, how it plays out in society, even how it kicks to the environment. Our mission for you listening is to leave you with a really clear understanding of what dignity truly is, why it's absolutely essential for us to flourish, and the huge impacts, good and bad, when it's present or, when it's missing.
And the approach here, it's genuinely groundbreaking. This study uses AI's incredible power for advanced pattern recognition, for synthesizing really complex data, even predictive modeling. So it's not just reviewing what we think we know. The AI digs into these vast pools of information, uncovering deeper connections, things we might have missed about behavior and society, all relating back to dignity. And the why behind this, it's huge. Understanding dignity is just paramount for developing and using AI systems responsibly. I mean, think about it. As AI gets more woven into our lives, into decisions, making sure it aligns with core human values like dignity, well, it's not just nice, it's vital. It's about preventing harm, ensuring AI actually helps society. AI might even assist us with tough ethical calls, processing info in ways we can't. But like any powerful tool, it definitely raises questions. Over-reliance. How do we keep humans in the loop, maintain our agency? These are big questions.
Okay, so let's unpack this concept of dignity itself.
Sure.
Has it always meant what we think it means today? Where did it sort of start?
That's a great place to begin. And no, it hasn't always meant the same thing, not at all. If you go way back, classical Rome, dignity, dignitas in Latin, it was mostly about social status, reputation, merit. It was definitely hierarchical. It marked distinctions, higher versus lower social standing. And that idea that dignity was something earned or based on rank, it stuck around for a really long time.
So for centuries, it was almost like a status symbol,
Mm-hmm.
reserved for the elite maybe. When did that big shift happen? The move towards dignity being universal, something everyone just has.
Right. That huge conceptual shift really kicked off during the Renaissance and especially the Enlightenment. And if you had to point to one person, Immanuel Kant in the 18th century was absolutely pivotal. Kant brought in this, revolutionary idea. Dignity as intrinsic, unearned, unforfeitable, something every single person possesses, period. Regardless of rank, class, what they've achieved, he famously argued that humanity must always be treated as an end in itself, never just as a means to an end. And he grounded this in our rational autonomy, our capacity for reason, for free choice.
That's a massive philosophical leap.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have this profound idea from Kant. How does it go from philosophy to, actual rules? When did inherent dignity become a codified legal norm for the whole world? That feels like another huge step.
It absolutely was. The full moralized meaning, that idea of inherent unearned worth, wasn't widely codified until after the horrors of World War II. That led directly to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the UDHR, in 1948. And the UDHR explicitly enshrines inherent dignity and equal and inalienable rights, calls them the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. That was the moment. Dignity became a universal legal right. It's now recognized in, I think, over 150 constitutions globally. It really does act as an equalizer.
Kant also said dignity is beyond price, word. But let's be real. In our world today, we see human attributes, human labor, sometimes treated like commodities, right? Like there's a price tag on things that feel priceless. What's the ethical challenge there?
You've nailed a critical tension. Kant's idea sets dignity as this absolute moral limit. You just can't put a price on it. Yet modern society constantly bumps up against that. Obviously, historical slavery is the ultimate example. But think about modern concerns, too, like how genetic information might be used for discrimination, or the way deeply personal human experiences can be commercialized. And here's where the AI analysis gets really interesting. An AI fed all this data could potentially analyze economic policies, market trends, even social media chatter to detect these subtle forms of what the study calls dignity commodification or instrumentalization. It could flag business models that, maybe unintentionally, exploit vulnerability or reduce people to data points without respecting that inherent worth.
Fascinating. So dignity isn't just this abstract idea floating around. It seems like it has real roots in our biology, too. How does something like empathy fit in?
Oh, absolutely. Empathy, our ability to sort of mentally simulate what someone else is feeling or thinking, it's a really complex neurobiological thing. It involves what scientists call bottom-up processing. Think automatic mirroring. We have these mirror neurons that help us directly share emotional states, almost like catching a feeling. And then there's top-down cognitive perspective taking. That's our theory of mind, actively trying to understand someone else's viewpoint. And neuroimaging studies, they actually show that when we feel empathy, the same brain regions light up as if we were experiencing that pain or emotion directly. It's quite profound.
Wow. But if empathy is so fundamental, why isn't it always universal? Why can we sometimes apply it selectively, or worse, just switch it off for certain groups?
Right. This is where it gets, well, complicated and really important. Our empathic responses aren't fixed. They can be modulated, influenced by our own traits or the situation. Things like, do we perceive the situation as fair? Does the person belong to our group? These factors can dial empathy up or down. And this modulation, it creates a cognitive pathway for what psychologists call moral exclusion, basically denying certain groups full moral standing, placing them outside our circle of empathy. And here's a surprising insight from the study. AI could potentially analyze neuroimaging and behavioral data to pinpoint the neural correlates of this empathy suppression, especially in conflicts between groups. This could even lead to AI-powered interventions. Imagine virtual reality empathy training designed to specifically re-engage those empathic circuits, maybe helping reduce moral exclusion. And what's truly revealing here is how our deep evolutionary past has shaped our social behavior, which directly impacts dignity. Social life is just defining for humans. It's crucial for language, science, technology, everything. Our feelings, positive and negative, evolved to motivate behaviors that helped us survive. And these mechanisms for unselfish behavior, like inclusive fitness, helping kin, or reciprocity, the whole I scratch your back, you scratch mine, even group selection, where cooperative groups outcompeted others, they're all deep-seated reasons why we form societies and, ideally, treat each other well.
That sounds like a fantastic basis for cooperation. But it also sounds like there might be some, let's call them design flaws, vulnerabilities. Especially that us versus them thing you mentioned. Is that part of our evolutionary baggage?
You've hit the nail on the head. That us and them tendency and this almost innate fear or suspicion of strangers, they are evolutionary byproducts. They might have helped small, early human groups stick together, maintain cohesion. But in our massive, complex, diverse, modern world, they become serious vulnerabilities. This inherent mechanism can be, and tragically often is, exploited. Used to create enemy images, justify aggression, even lead to calls for the elimination of other cultures. The study shows how AI can model these complex social dynamics using things like evolutionary game theory. It's like running super complex simulations of how behaviors pay off over generations. This helps us understand why conflicts escalate under certain conditions, what norms make things worse, and ultimately could inform how we design better societal structures to mitigate these risks. And our moral decision-making itself is complex, too. It involves networks across the brain, often described by this dual process theory. It's like our brain has two speeds, a fast, intuitive, gut-feeling system that immediate sense something is wrong, and a slower, more deliberate reasoning system. The way these two systems interact really influences our moral choices and our capacity to either extend dignity or, unfortunately, deny it.
And then there's genetics. That field is just exploding. How do genetic considerations connect with human dignity?
Genetics brings up some really profound, really sensitive ethical questions. We're talking privacy, obviously. The potential for discrimination, which is why laws like GINA, the Genetic Information Non-Discrimination Act, exist. Then there's informed consent for testing, and the huge implications of gene editing technologies like CRISPR. Concerns about eugenics, the whole designer baby idea, they directly challenge that core concept of inherent worth. Could we end up creating new inequalities based purely on genes? And germline editing, changing the genetic code passed down to future generations, that presents incredibly complex dilemmas about altering the human blueprint itself. But human dignity, because it's intrinsic and unearned, fundamentally demands we don't reduce people to just their genetic makeup. Genetic data is uniquely personal, uniquely predictive. And AI here is a double-edged sword. If it's biased, it can make things worse. But, used ethically, it could be a powerful tool for oversight. Imagine AI detecting subtle patterns of genetic discrimination in large data sets, or simulating the long-term societal effects of widespread genetic enhancement. That could help us develop policies proactively to safeguard that universal dignity.
Okay, so dignity has these biological roots, this philosophical weight of inherent worth. What does all that mean for the actual rules and laws that structure our societies? How are they linked to dignity and human flourishing?
They're intrinsically linked. The study points to natural law, this idea of a foundational moral compass, not something society creates, but something we discover through reason. Thinkers from the ancient Greeks right up to Locke during the Enlightenment explored this. These deep principles, like the idea that murder is just universally wrong, they profoundly influenced what we call positive law, the actual written laws we enact and enforce, and a well-functioning legal system. It's absolutely fundamental for upholding dignity. It protects our identity, ensures free choice through things like due process, equal protection under the law. Basically, the rule of law creates the stability and liberty needed for people to flourish.
And when the study talks about human results, what are we really getting at there?
Human results is shorthand for human flourishing, for overall societal well-being. It's multifaceted. It includes positive emotions, feeling engaged in life, having meaningful relationships, a sense of purpose, accomplishment, good health, even financial stability. And the study really stresses how much this is influenced by social determinants. Things like economic stability, access to good education and healthcare, living in safe neighborhoods, it's all connected. And the dynamic is fascinating. Natural law ideally underpins positive law, but positive law can drift. It can lead to what the study calls unnecessary rules, or problems like governmental paternalism that might erode individual responsibility, or systemic inequalities that actively block flourishing for some groups. It just highlights that laws need constant checking, constant evaluation, and this is where AI could be incredibly useful. Performing dignity audits of legal systems. Imagine an AI scanning vast databases of laws, court decisions, enforcement patterns to identify where the system upholds dignity and autonomy, but also where it subtly undermines well-being. It could pinpoint these deficits and even suggest reforms, maybe rules that need removing or new ones that need adding.
We keep saying dignity is universal, but you look around the world, and how it's expressed, how it's understood, seems to vary so much across cultures. How do we square that circle, that universal idea with all this diversity?
That's a really key question. It is universal in its core, but its interpretation and practice definitely vary. Sometimes it gets tangled up with concepts like honor or pride, which might be more culturally specific. But the core elements, things like autonomy, respect, equality, justice, they generally hold true across different contexts. How it's expressed, though, that's deeply shaped by culture. In collectivist cultures, dignity might be more tied to family, community standing. In individualist cultures, maybe more to personal autonomy, individual rights. For many indigenous cultures, there's often a profound connection to land, to nature that's integral to dignity, and the practical ways it shows up. Asserting rights, yes, but also things like assisting elders, creating respectful workplaces, ensuring fair trials, patient autonomy in healthcare, advocating for fair wages, fighting discrimination, preserving cultural heritage. It's broad, and this is another area where AI analysis can be helpful. By crunching huge data sets, cultural practices, legal systems, social media from all over AI can potentially identify those common underlying principles, while also mapping the specific ways dignity is expressed in different cultures. This could allow for what the study terms context-aware dignity frameworks, ways to respect diversity while still affirming universal human rights.
Leadership and governance seem like massive levers here. They can either really promote dignity or, well, undermine it pretty drastically. What did the study find about that connection?
Oh, it's a direct and powerful link. Poor leadership, especially leadership driven by self-interest, by greed rather than the common good, it directly fuels things like corruption. And that often leads to basic needs not being met, which is a fundamental violation of dignity. The study points to specific toxic leadership behaviors: belittling people, micromanaging, intimidation, taking credit for others' work, ignoring unethical stuff. These create fear, disengagement. They actively erode dignity in workplaces, in communities, in nations. Conversely, healthy cultures, ones that affirm dignity. They're fostered when leaders consistently model integrity, accountability, respect, transparency, ethical decision-making. It flows from the top. The study suggests we need a new kind of leadership ethic, one that's truly inclusive, that recognizes everyone's intrinsic worth, and genuinely aims for collective well-being, not just individual gain.
So building on that, if we wanted to create the ideal culture for choosing leaders, say in government, what principles should guide us based on this understanding of dignity?
Well, drawing from the study, a culture grounded in dignity would prioritize inherent worth, social justice, and collective well-being above all else. That means electing leaders who demonstrably embody integrity, empathy, and a real commitment to serving the common good, not just paying lip service to it. And AI, interestingly, could play a role here too. It could analyze policy outcomes, how resources are allocated, public sentiment, to correlate specific leadership behaviors with dignity indicators across society. It could even help develop predictive models for which leadership styles are actually effective at promoting dignity.
Okay, let's shift to a more, unsettling aspect the study explores, this chilling process where dignity is systematically worn down, specifically through dehumanization. Can you walk us through how that actually happens?
Right. Dehumanization is fundamentally a psychological process. It's where individuals, or often entire groups, are perceived as less than human. They're denied those qualities we see as essentially human-like complex emotions, higher reasoning, moral sensibility, and the effect is devastating. It places them outside our circle of moral concern. It weakens those natural psychological barriers we have against harming others, making cruel treatment seem acceptable, even necessary.
Can you give us maybe some stark examples of how this actually looks in the real world?
Unfortunately, yes. It takes several forms. There's animalistic dehumanization, explicitly comparing groups to animals. Think of the Nazis calling Jews rats or vermin, or Hutu extremists in Rwanda calling Tutsis cockroaches. It's incredibly degrading. Then there's mechanistic dehumanization. This is seeing others as objects, tools, or machines lacking agency or feeling. We see this in the objectification of women or treating workers like interchangeable cogs. And there's also cultural dehumanization, where entire cultures are deemed inferior, savage, or backward. This was rampant during colonialism, the underlying drivers. Things like intense in-group bias, the influence of authority figures telling us it's okay, our capacity for moral disengagement, basically, switching off our moral compass and even projecting our own unwanted traits onto an enemy.
And propaganda, mass media, how do they fuel this destructive process?
They are incredibly powerful catalysts. Propaganda uses specific techniques. Relentless repetition, playing on fear and prejudice, creating false black and white choices, direct demonization. It strategically filters information to get the desired reaction, often bypassing critical thinking altogether. And now, AI's role here is a huge growing concern. AI is transforming how content is created, and that brings a massive risk of amplifying dangerous speech, hate speech, dehumanizing narratives. We've already seen reports, disturbing ones, of AI chatbots generating anti-Semitic content or hate speech. Social media algorithms, often designed just for maximum engagement, can inadvertently push inflammatory, dehumanizing content viral. But the study also points out AI can be a tool to fight this. It can be used to detect and analyze these patterns. AI models, particularly in natural language processing, NLP, can be trained to identify specific linguistic markers of dehumanization in real time. They could even model how these toxic narratives spread, maybe predicting where escalation is likely.
This leads us straight to some of the most profound violations of dignity, historically and today. What are some examples that are almost universally seen as attacks on dignity?
Well, torture is a prime example, and interestingly, the perspective here is often that torture primarily damages the torturer's dignity, their humanity, because the victim's inherent dignity can't actually be taken away. It's inherent. Rape is increasingly understood globally as not just a horrific crime, but a profound violation of human rights and a deep assault on dignity. And importantly, systemic issues like poverty and social exclusion are also widely recognized as direct violations of dignity. They deny people the basic means to live a life of worth and agency. History, tragically, is full of examples where dehumanization was the explicit prelude to mass atrocities. The Holocaust, obviously, the Rwandan genocide, events in Cambodia under the Khmer Rouge, the former Yugoslavia, the Armenian genocide. But there are broader systemic violations, too. The transatlantic slave trade, colonization, the ongoing objectification of women in many societies, the demonization of migrants and refugees. And we need to be aware the word dignity itself can be twisted in political rhetoric, used as a kind of pseudo-argument, or just to stir up emotion without real substance. We sometimes see leaders using dehumanizing language, maybe describing opponents' cities as disgusting places where no human being would live. This kind of talk normalizes lethal language. It can appeal to what some call honor traps among people who feel left behind, potentially fueling violent extremism. AI, the study suggests, could help analyze this, building a dignity violation typology and flagging rhetoric that normalizes violence.
It really makes you stop and think. Why do humans, who have this capacity for dignity and empathy, sometimes break their own rules, their own cultural norms, and even try to wipe out other cultures entirely? What's driving that darkness?
It's a disturbing question, and the answer involves a complex mix of psychology, social dynamics, and our evolutionary history. When conflicts become protracted, when hatred intensifies, it creates psychological distance. This leads to that moral exclusion we talked about. Opponents are no longer seen as fully human, not deserving of basic moral consideration. The empathy circuit gets shut down. A huge driver is our deep-seated need for group identity. We tend to define our us by contrasting our virtues with the perceived vices of them. This creates these potent enemy images. And this is often amplified by psychological projection, attributing our own unacceptable impulses or failings onto the other group. Once a group is successfully stigmatized, labeled as evil, less than human, persecuting them becomes psychologically easier. The normal restraints against aggression just dissolve. Conflicts can escalate to the horrifying point where people believe the destruction of the other side is necessary for their own survival or purity, and modern life, ironically, might contribute. High population density, constant interaction with strangers are innate. Evolved wariness of outsiders can sometimes be amplified, increasing hostility. While some moral norms seem deeply rooted, like avoiding murder within the group, many rules are cultural constructs. And sometimes these norms themselves can lead to behaviors that undermine dignity, especially towards outsiders. That us versus them dynamic is a real evolutionary vulnerability, easily exploited by manipulative leaders and propaganda. Again, AI might help model how these divisive mentalities spread through social networks and information flows, and potentially help design interventions, maybe educational programs, or even tweaks to social media algorithms that promote positive intergroup contact and understanding.
Okay, after exploring how dignity gets eroded, which is pretty heavy stuff, let's pivot to something more hopeful. How do we actually nurture dignity? What does the study suggest is the best possible scenario for raising a healthy, educated, good child, one who really understands and lives dignity?
It really comes down to a holistic approach, addressing all dimensions of a child's development: physical, emotional, social, cognitive, even their spiritual or moral sense. Absolutely central is what experts call nurturing care. This means a safe, secure, loving environment, basic needs met like good nutrition, but also consistent stimulation, warmth, affection, being treated with respect from the very beginning. Consistent routines, clear boundaries, predictable schedules. These aren't just about discipline. They help children develop crucial skills like emotional regulation and cognitive abilities. And the study really emphasizes optimal child development isn't just about the immediate family. It's deeply connected to broader societal factors: economic stability for the family, access to quality education and healthcare, safe neighborhoods, supportive communities. Policies that explicitly recognize children as rights holders are absolutely essential. It takes a village, as they say.
And what about specifically teaching ethics? How do we instill that sense of right and wrong, that respect for others' dignity as kids grow up?
Ethical socialization is key. It involves several things. First, ethical role modeling by adult children learn by watching us. Consistent standards of right and wrong, and importantly, explaining the reasons behind rules, not just because I said so. Actively fostering empathy, encouraging kids to think about how others feel. Developing critical thinking skills so they can navigate moral dilemmas themselves. And giving them opportunities to practice positive behaviors, volunteering, helping others, engaging with people from diverse backgrounds and relationships built on equality and inclusion. Community and policy support are vital too. Things like workshops on preventing abuse, creating safe spaces, mentorship programs, providing support for families going through tough times, having dignity-informed education in schools, teaching mutual respect and compassion as core values. It's a whole system, and it's intergenerational. How we experience dignity in childhood directly shapes our ability to uphold it as adults. The study suggests AI could model this dignity cultivation ecosystem. By analyzing long-term data, AI could help identify which policies have the biggest positive impact, and even simulate the long-term societal benefits of investing in children's well-being and dignity from the start.
This raises another really interesting, maybe more modern question. How does our relationship with the natural world, with the environment, connect to human dignity? It doesn't immediately seem obvious, but the study links them.
It's an absolutely integral link and increasingly recognized as such. A safe, clean, healthy, and sustainable environment is now seen as indispensable for the full enjoyment of human rights, and therefore human dignity. Think about it. Environmental degradation driven by things like unchecked urbanization, population growth, climate change, it has devastating consequences for people's health, their livelihoods, their overall well-being. Simply lacking access to basic environmental resources like clean drinking water directly diminishes human capabilities. It fundamentally erodes dignity. Ecological ethics offers some critical principles here. Justice, addressing the fact that environmental harms like pollution disproportionately affect marginalized communities, that's environmental justice. Sustainability, considering the long-term effects of our actions on future generations. Sufficiency, the idea that all life, human and non-human, is entitled to enough resources, avoiding wastefulness. Compassion, extending our moral concern beyond just humans. And solidarity and participation, ensuring that everyone affected, including considering the voice of nature itself somehow, has a say in decisions.
Are there concrete examples that really drive this connection home?
Absolutely. The Flint water crisis in Michigan is a tragic textbook example of environmental injustice. It disproportionately harmed low-income and minority communities, violating their rights to health and dignity through contaminated water. Indigenous communities worldwide are often on the front lines, facing severe impacts from climate change and resource extraction that threaten their lands, their cultures, their very way of life, all tied to their dignity. Even historically, think about the Memphis sanitation strike in 1968. Those workers weren't just striking for pay. Their famous slogan was, "I am a man," demanding equality, dignity, and respect in the face of hazardous environmental working conditions. We're seeing increasing legal recognition of these links, too. Courts in various places are ruling that environmental degradation violates fundamental human rights. This has led to emerging concepts like the rule of ecological law, suggesting that ecological limits should sometimes take precedence. And AI, again, can play a role. Analyzing environmental injustices by processing vast amounts of environmental data, demographic info, health records to pinpoint affected communities. It could simulate the long-term consequences of different environmental policies on human well-being and dignity, helping guide us towards ensuring, as the study puts it, a more balanced universe.
Okay, this is where it's really exciting, potentially. Beyond just analyzing dignity, the study highlights how AI has these unprecedented capabilities to deepen our understanding and maybe even help us develop strategies to advance dignity universally. What are some of these capabilities AI brings?
Right. AI's capacity for advanced analysis, understanding, and explanation is really key here for looking at the past, present, and future of dignity. Take complex data synthesis. AI can process these enormous multidisciplinary data sets, philosophy, law, neuroscience, social media, environmental stats, finding subtle patterns and connections that are just beyond what a human researcher could realistically grasp. Then there's modeling human behavior and biases. AI can create sophisticated models of social interactions, including those evolutionary dynamics we talked about, moral exclusion, dehumanization. This means it can help us understand how biases might creep into AI systems themselves, but also how a carefully designed AI might actually help mitigate human biases in some contexts. And crucially, predictive analytics. AI can develop models to forecast societal outcomes related to dignity. Imagine being able to predict, with some accuracy, the risk of conflict escalating based on dehumanizing language online, or forecasting the long-term societal impacts of new genetic technologies, or demonstrating the likely benefits of investing more in early childhood programs that foster dignity.
So it's not just understanding the problem better. It sounds like AI could actually move from understanding to actively fostering dignity. How does that leap work?
Exactly. There are several ways. First, ethical framework development and alignment. AI can help us refine our ethical frameworks by analyzing diverse moral philosophies and cultural values. This helps ensure that as we build new AI systems, they're designed from the start to align with core human values to make decisions that are more ethically sound. Techniques like RLHF reinforcement learning from human feedback are literally teaching AI the why behind our ethical choices. Second, bias reduction and fairness promotion. Used carefully, AI could potentially reduce human biases in really sensitive areas, hiring, loan applications, even aspects of the legal system by applying ethical frameworks consistently. But, and this is a big but, we need constant vigilance to ensure AI doesn't just automate or amplify existing biases. Next, early warning systems and intervention design. By spotting those patterns of dehumanization in media or online discourse, AI could act as an early warning system. This could inform targeted interventions, maybe public awareness campaigns or designing social media algorithms to promote understanding instead of division. Then, policy optimization. Those dignity audits we discussed. AI analyzing laws and policies, finding structures that harm dignity, and recommending data-driven reforms. Simulating the benefits of investing in things like early childhood development to make the case for policy changes. And lastly, maybe most profoundly, empowering human moral capacity. The goal isn't for AI to replace our moral judgment, but to enhance it. By providing data, insights, different perspectives on complex ethical dilemmas, AI can empower us to make better, more considered moral choices. As the study emphasizes, it's all a continuous feedback loop. AI analyzes data, generates insights, humans act on those insights, AI learns from the outcomes, refining its understanding and recommendations over time. So as we read at this deep dive, I think it's abundantly clear that human dignity isn't simple. It's complex, it's evolving, but it's utterly foundational. It's indispensable, not just for us as individuals to flourish, but for the health and stability of our societies. From Kant's philosophy to the empathy circuits in our brains to how it's lived out differently across cultures and enshrined in law, it's all deeply connected to our well-being.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And when it's present, when it's respected, it fosters mutual respect, social justice, psychological health, and ultimately peace. But when it's eroded through dehumanization, political manipulation, systemic inequality, the consequences are just devastating. Conflict, violence, discrimination, a diminished quality of life, frankly, for everyone involved.
And the science of the science, looking at how we study dignity itself, reveals this dynamic dance between our innate capacities, our moral sense, our empathy, our evolved social tendencies, and the rules and norms we construct as societies. We have this potential for good, for recognizing inherent worth, but it can be warped by group identity, by fear, by bad leadership. That pursuit of human results, of maximum flourishing, means we constantly have to evaluate our rules, our laws, our cultures to make sure they truly align with the dignity of every single person.
And AI, in this whole picture, it emerges as much more than just a fancy calculator. It's a potential partner in grappling with all this complexity. Its ability to synthesize immense amounts of data, model intricate behaviors, predict outcomes. It offers truly unprecedented opportunities to understand what drives dignity and what causes its erosion. By spotting those subtle patterns, evaluating policies, simulating futures, AI can give us critical intelligence to help build a more dignified world. So, with all of this unpacked, here's the final thought, the question really, for you listening. How will you take these insights and use them to promote dignity in your own life, your own sphere, whether that's your community, your work, or just your daily interactions? And as we all do that, how do we make sure AI remains a powerful, but importantly, an ethical partner in this journey? Always keeping human oversight, human values, and accountability front and center for a future where everyone, truly everyone, can flourish.
This is DigitView.